Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Sideline, a podcast where we talk about the latest sports stories and give our opinions as fans watching our teams play from beyond the sideline. In this podcast, we're going to be covering the NFL, NBA, and MLB specifically, and occasionally cover other sports like the NHL, MMA/UFC, and boxing. If you would like to be updated on when a new episode will be uploaded, you can follow my Twitter or Twitch at SepticKid24. SEPTICKIDD 24. If you follow me on one of those platforms, you could also be directed to my Discord server, where I will post every time a new episode is uploaded. So before we get started on our topics today, the, this podcast is something that I've been wanting to do for a few years now. I first got the itch in late 2020, mid 2021. The Super Bowl had just ended. I believe it was Super Bowl 55, and those playoffs in general in the NFL. And I kind of got the itch to want to start a podcast because my knowledge of sports, mainly NBA and NFL, have grown, as well as MLB. And I feel like there isn't a podcast that I've seen that gives a true fan's point of view. Now, the podcasts that I've seen are going into it with a more analytical point of view. They're showing unbiased. Not to say that I am going to show bias, I'm just saying that they tend to sound way more professional. Where in this podcast, I'm going to be a bit more casual. Everything's going to be raw. These are my emotions, my opinions. Like I said before, this is a fan's point of view. I'm a fan of the NFL, NBA, MLB. I love watching the UFC and boxing. Hockey, I'm starting to get into. Now, in this podcast, we probably won't cover a lot of hockey content, but when the Stanley Cup playoffs come around, I will be sure to acknowledge some of the games that are going on at that time. And as for the UFC and boxing, I will talk for a short period of time on certain main events, like the John Jones and Stipe Miocic fight is coming up in a few months. I will be talking about that, and the Logan Paul versus Dylan Dennis, as well as the KSI fight, will be. I believe it's KSI versus Tommy Fury. I will be talking about that as well. Now, like I said before, I started getting interest in starting a podcast after Super Bowl 55 when the Buccaneers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 35-9. I believe that a podcast is just something that would fit me as I love talking about sports with friends, family, people I've met online, and such. And I was going to start last year, but things just didn't feel right. But now I think it's the perfect time to start, as it is the start of the NFL season, and as of the recording of this episode, it is September 14th, 2023. It is Thursday. As of right now, the Eagles and Vikings game is going on, so and I also have it up, so you may hear me react to that game as well. Like I said, this is raw. These are my reactions. Now, the MLB playoffs are also coming up pretty soon, so I will definitely be covering that as well. And who I think is going to win it all, who I think maybe the sleepers going into the playoffs. The NBA is starting up soon. Preseason is right around the corner. I will be sure to cover NBA content. And as more episodes start to come out, I will try my best to possibly get some guests on the podcast as well. Not only to get their opinions on the sports news of today, but to also ask them questions about their love for sports and when their first interaction with sports, when they first started watching and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's get into our first topic. So today is mainly going to be NFL related, and this episode may be a bit shorter than others as this is the inaugural episode. I'm just getting my feet wet. So, our first topic of the day is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Now, I think we all know by now that the injury that Aaron Rodgers suffered is heartbreaking, not only for him or the Jets fan base and their franchise, but the NFL as a whole and sports. It's really sad to see that happen to him. I was, really excited for that Monday night game. Bills versus Jets. It's 9/11. The energies are high. The energy is high. They're celebrating the lives of the people who were lost during that fateful day, and it being two New York teams playing at MetLife, you could feel the energy through the TV. And as soon as Aaron Rodgers went out there, you knew he was going to light a spark within the franchise and lead them to the promised land, lead them to the playoffs, get them past the AFC Championship, and possibly win a Super Bowl. But in his fourth snap, we saw him get sacked, and if you watch the replay closely, you can see his left calf sort of pulse. And that right there told you it was either a pulled calf muscle or he tore his Achilles. And unfortunately, it was the latter. That means he will be out for the entire season. And people are saying that he's probably going to retire or this is going to be really hard for him to come back from as he is now, I believe, 39 years old, if I'm guessing correctly. But if we look back at when Kobe ruptured his Achilles, he was doing a lot more running than Aaron Rodgers will be doing. Aaron Rodgers is more so a pocket passer. Sure, he can get out and scramble a little bit, but he wants to stick in that pocket for as long as he can, trust his offensive line, and try to get the air underneath the ball, and just Hail Mary one out there. And it being his left foot or his left Achilles, I think is a bit better as he's not planting that. He's not going to be planting that foot to gain his power. In throws, like really deep throws, you usually lead with your back foot and push, not really with your front foot. Your front foot is mainly your guide. Your back foot, that's where you push and get all that power from. So I feel like he's going to make a great recovery, and he will be back next season. He's going to keep playing. I mean, he got a 4-year contract, I believe, for 134 million, if I'm not mistaken, for 98.7 million guaranteed. So I have no doubt he will be back, and he will be ready and hungry to go win a Super Bowl for the Jets, along with that young team. I mean, they got a lot going for them over there in New York slash New Jersey. Now, the big question is, do the Jets want to stick with Zach Wilson? Now, he played fairly well when he came in for Aaron Rodgers. I pulled up the stats here, and he went 14 for 21 with 140 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Now, compared to all of his other games in his career, this was a really solid game. Now, they did run the ball a good amount. They had 172 rushing yards that game. as opposed to their 117 passing yards. I think Zach Wilson is an okay choice for the Jets as he's been in their system for a couple years now, and he knows the playbook. Robert Saleh and the coaching staff trust him. I mean, for what it's worth, he's a solid young player. Sure, he still has a little bit of room for development, but I have no doubt with the weapons that he has in Dalvin Cook, Alan Lazard, and Garrett Wilson, and that defense backing him, that the Jets could surprise some people and possibly make a push at this point for a wild card spot. Now, if the Jets don't want to stick with Zach Wilson, who are they going to go with? They could do a few things. They could trade for a quarterback. Now, I wrote some names down for people who they could trade for. You got Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, and Andy Dalton. I think out of those three, Jameis Winston or Jacoby Brissett is probably your best bet, as they are a bit more agile. They can throw the ball. They have good field vision. And not to say Andy Dalton doesn't. I just think with the team that they have, Jameis Winston and Jacoby Brissett will fit that play style more. Now, if they don't want to trade for someone, they could sign someone from free agency. Colt McCoy is a great option. You could also bring back Joe Flacco, Nick Foles. Carson Wentz is also an option. I think Carson Wentz is probably their best option. Cam Newton is a great option. You could sign Matt Ryan, who still has yet to retire, or you can go with the man whose agent has recently reached out to the Jets. The one who sparked controversy all over the NFL almost a decade ago. I'm talking about former 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is still a solid selection. He can run the ball, he can pass the ball, he can do it all. He's a well-rounded quarterback. He can still get the job done. I just don't think NFL team is going to want to pick him up just for the stuff that has happened to him in the past, which is sad because I believe he does deserve a roster spot, whether it is a starting quarterback or a backup spot. But, we'll see how that plays out. News just broke out recently that he will only work out through a Zoom call. He says he doesn't want to get COVID, risk his health getting COVID and not even get the job. So he says if they want him seriously, they can do a workout over a Zoom call. Or you could go and sign someone out of retirement. Now, these ones are far-fetched, but I don't think they're impossible. You could sign Phillip Rivers out of retirement, which is what the 49ers were going to do if they beat the Eagles and made it to the Super Bowl. Or you could get Tom Brady. That's the one that's really far-fetched, although I don't think it's impossible because we've seen Tom Brady retire and then come right back. But I really don't think Tom Brady is going to unretire, as he just did his, I believe it was a retirement ceremony with the Patriots on Sunday against the Eagles. I mean, all of these choices are great for the Jets. I believe all of them fit well into the play style that the Jets have. Obviously, Joe Flacco has seen the playbook before, so it's familiar. But out of all these, I think someone like Carson Wentz, Colt McCoy, Jameis Winston, or Jacoby Brissett would be the best options for them. They're young ish, some of them. They're agile. They got a good arm. They got good pass accuracy. And even if they don't want to pass the ball and they don't trust their own arm, since maybe they're having a down game, you got Dalvin Cook in the backfield. You can run a screen pass to Alan Lazard or a slant with Garrett Wilson. And if worse comes to worse, you still got Zach Wilson on the team. If you don't trade him or, let him go. Now, still on the topic of the Jets, their defense kept them in that game on Monday. At halftime, they were down 13-3, but they only let up 3 points in the second half and overtime. Those 3 points came in the fourth quarter. Excuse me. If it wasn't for their defense, the Jets would have lost that game. Personally, I think. The Jets only had 2 penalties that game for 10 yards, where the Bills had 5 for 40. The Jets had 5 sacks, forced 3 punts, forced a fumble, and snagged 3 interceptions. They applied the pressure that game. They were on it. And if I'm being honest, I think they were the 3rd best defense in week 1. Now, I say 3rd because there's some other teams, and we'll get to them. But I just want to say a little bit more. The Jets held the Bills to only 97 rushing yards and 4.6 yards per play. And Josh Allen was held to 29 of 41 with only a touchdown and 3 interceptions. One of his worst games in his career. It was not a good outing for him. But Bills fans, don't worry. This isn't something to be scared of. I know it's an AFC East opponent, but you guys are fine. You still have 16 more games to play. I have no doubt you're going to be back in the playoffs. Unless something unforeseen happens. You guys are going to do fine. Now, I said the Jets were the 3rd best defense this week. The other 2 defenses that I believe did great. Let's talk about the Cowboys. They beat the Giants on Sunday night 40-0. They scored 26 points in the first half and 14 in the second. They held the Giants to only 171 total yards, 63 passing, and 108 rushing, and only 2.6 yards per play, as opposed to the Cowboys' 4.8. The Giants' 3rd down efficiency was 5 for 16, and their 4th down was 3 for 5. They were sacked 7 times. They had to punt 3 times. They had 6 penalties for 72 yards, as opposed to the Cowboys' 5 for 35. They had 1 fumble and threw 2 interceptions. I think it's safe to say the Cowboys had the best defense in week 1. And do I think they're going to hold up through the entire season? I don't think so. I think this was just a little cakewalk game, as it is the Giants. The Giants are good. They're young. But I believe that it was somewhat of a fluke. Like I said, they're going to be a great team. They're making the playoffs. I just don't expect to see a 40-0 game like that, or any game that's going to be close to that. Now, if they do that in the future, well then, they prove me wrong. But I'm just saying, as of right now, Cowboys fans, please don't get your hopes up. As for the second best defense in Week 1, I believe it's the 49ers. They played the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh in Week 1 and won 30-7. Those 7 points by the Steelers came in the second quarter, where San Francisco went into the half up 20-7. They held the Steelers to only 239 total yards, 198 passing, and only 41 rushing yards with 3.9 yards per play. The third down efficiency was 5 for 15. Their fourth down efficiency, 1 for 3. They were sacked 5 times, had to punt 6 of those times, had 6 penalties for 60 yards, as opposed to San Francisco's 11 for 85. They didn't fumble, although they threw 2 interceptions. And their time of possession, 22 minutes and 37 seconds. As opposed to the 49ers, 37 minutes and 23 seconds. Kenny Pickett went 31 for 46, 232 yards, which is great. But he threw only 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. That's not going to win you games. It's just straight up. Steelers need to get rolling. Do I think they can make the wild card? It's hard to tell right now. I would like to think so. But after that outing, I don't think it's a safe bet. I believe the AFC North is going to be a competition, as we have the Bengals, the Browns, and the Ravens. I think the Steelers are the weakest of the 4. I think the Browns have a better chance at making the playoffs, honestly, and the Ravens. I think the Bengals are a lock. Personally, I don't think Bengals fans should be scared after losing to the Browns. It's Week 1. But, I can't say the same for the Steelers. Steelers are a totally different story. Now, I trust Mike Tomlin, and I know his team trusts him. But you can only do so much. And as for the Bengals, they lost 3-24 with their only points coming in the third quarter. They were held to 142 total yards, 67 passing yards, 75 rushing yards, and 2.6 yards per play. Their third down efficiency was 2 for 15, and they were 0 for 1 on fourth downs. They were sacked twice, had to punt 10 times, had 4 penalties for 20 yards, as opposed to the Browns' 5 for 43. They didn't fumble, and they didn't throw an interception, but their time of possession was 24 minutes and 10 seconds, as opposed to the Browns' 35 minutes and 50 seconds. I think the Browns have the 4th best defense this week. Why do I not think they're better than the Jets? It's because they held Josh Allen at bay. Even after Aaron Rodgers went down, they fought through all of that adversity to stay in the game and win in overtime off of a punt return. Joe Burrow went 14 of 31 through 82 yards. That's it. I don't think Bengals fans should be scared. But after that performance, you can only assume what's going through his head. Now, the Eagles, why are they not top 4 or even top 3? Well, it's because they started the game out 16-0 in the first quarter. They then went to the half up 16-14. And then They only won by 5, 25-20. They gave up almost twice as many yards the as they did. Their total yards were three. The Patriots' total yards were 382, as compared to the Eagles' 251. Had 306 passing yards as opposed to the Eagles' 154. Patriots had 76 rushing yards as opposed to the Eagles' 97. And Patriots had 4.9 yards per play, where the Eagles had 4.1. The Eagles had 2 sacks, where the Patriots had 3. Eagles punted 4 times, where the Patriots punted 5. Patriots had 7 penalties for 50 yards, as opposed to the Eagles' 5 for 49. They both fumbled. Patriots had the lone interception, and the time of possession was nearly identical. I think the Patriots defense played, or the Patriots offense played better than the Eagles defense. But obviously, ultimately, the Eagles offense won them that game. That's why I think they're the 5th best defense this week. And as we look over now to their game right now, as of recording this, there's 9 minutes left in the third quarter. Eagles are up 27-14. Their defense is getting it done. The Vikings just scored, and the Eagles are now back on offense. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be between the Eagles and the Cowboys for the NFC East. Who wins that division? I think it's the Eagles. I think they are a way better team than the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys really have a grasp of what they're doing. They're just going out there and hoping to get an interception. They're going to go out there hoping to win 40-0 every single time they play, which I think is a bit too confident. It's nice to have confidence, but with the Cowboys, a little confidence kind of boosts their ego, I've noticed. Especially their fans' ego. Hey, like I said, this is raw. It's from a fan's point of view. I don't really like Cowboys fans. It's not your year. It hasn't been your year since the 90s. But they've been saying that every year. You know? All right. Let's move on to the first game of the season, Thursday night. Lions in Kansas City to play the Chiefs. Now, that was a game. Did I think the Lions were going to win? Yes. This Lions team is making the playoffs. They are making the wild card. They have a real shot at winning this division, the NFC North. The Packers really only have a run game. I don't think Jordan Love is good enough to lead them to the playoffs. I just don't think they can only run the ball and win games. Now they do have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, but like I said, running the ball can only get you so many wins. The Bears, I don't think I need to say anything about the Bears. Chase Claypool did not play well. Justin Fields is just an average quarterback who can run. And then the Vikings. I mean, they have the pieces. I just don't think Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. I don't think you want Justin Jefferson to be catching passes from Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback. I just don't think he's right for Minnesota anymore. I think his time has came and went. That's why I didn't draft Justin Jefferson in fantasy. And for those, if you still have a draft coming up, I would not advise drafting Justin Jefferson. I would go for someone like Christian McCaffrey. Justin Jefferson is good, but remember who's under center. It's Kirk Cousins. But if you get someone like Christian McCaffrey, 49ers love to pass, but they also love to run. Christian McCaffrey does well in both of those. He's great. You could also go for someone like Jamar Chase or even Aaron Jones because the Packers are going to be running the ball 8 times out of 10. Now, if we look at the stats, the Lions were down 14-7 in the first half, but they picked it up and had a 14-6 second half. Lions had 368 total yards, 250 passing, 118 rushing, 5.3 yards per play. Chiefs had 316 total yards, 226 passing, 90 rushing, 5.1 yards per play. The Chiefs had 1 sack, had 3 penalties for 25 yards as opposed to the Lions 4 for 63. They forced a fumble, but they had the lone interception of the game, and the time of possession favored the Lions by roughly 5 minutes. Jared Goff had a better game than Patrick Mahomes. I'm just going to say it. If we're looking at only stats, 22 of 35, 253 yards, and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes went 21 for 39, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I don't know, but I mean, Patrick Mahomes can get it done, but I mean, Jared Goff just had that grit. He led his team to victory. He just wanted it more. He played better. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he chucks things up and hopes someone catches him. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore. Kadarius Toney was butterfingers that game. Sure, some of the passes were thrown behind him, but the ones that were easily catchable just didn't. It just went right through his fingers. Isaiah Pacheco, great running back, but like I said with the Packers, running the ball can only get you so far. And the Lions, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got David Montgomery in the backfield. You got Jamar Gibbs now. On defense, you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Aiden Hutchinson, who is a beast and a honest contender for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, people are going to say, oh, the Chiefs didn't have Chris Jones. They didn't have Travis Kelce. The Eagles are without 3 of their best players, or 3 of their star role players. And they're up 13 against the Vikings with 6 minutes left in the third. 27-14. There's been so many times where teams haven't had their players and they win. Look at the 49ers. Trey Lance went out in week 2, I believe it was. Or week 1. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. They win. Jimmy Garoppolo goes down. Look who comes in. Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is now their guy. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle were out with injuries for portions of that season, of last season. They still got it done. It's not a good excuse. It shouldn't matter whether you have your star players out there or not. If you're a good football team, you go out there and you win no matter the problems you face. It doesn't matter if your star running back's out, your star receiver left, your quarterback got hurt, your tight end is limited. You still find a way to get it done. And the Chiefs just couldn't find that way. But this isn't the last we're going to see of the Chiefs. Obviously, they're going to easily win the AFC West. You got the Broncos with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton at the helm now. I don't think they're going to get more than 6 wins. I don't think Sean Payton's the answer. I don't think he's going to turn this team around in one season. I don't think he's going to turn it around in two. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to get better. I think we saw the best of him once he left Seattle, once he got traded. I think that was it. As for the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo looked good. I will say that. But as a Niners fan, I know Jimmy is not reliable when it comes down to the nitty gritty of things. In the playoffs, he folds. In 2 minute or less situation, he folds. He's injury prone when it comes to his ankle and his knees, his lower extremities. I don't I don't think, Jimmy Garoppolo is just a copy and paste of Derek Carr. Like I said when they signed him, they got rid of Derek Carr to get a more handsome Derek Carr. I don't know what they were going for. If the Raiders want to win, I think they need to get rid of Mike McDaniels. I don't get how Mike McDaniels still has a job. The man went what, 0 for 6, 0 for 8 before his first win, where other guys lost 2 or 3 games and were out. But Mike McDaniel still had a job because Al Davis believed in him. That is the biggest piece of explicit. I will not curse on this podcast, but that's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. When you're 0 and 6, 0 and 8, why don't even consider firing him? Don't even talk about it. Just do it. They obviously don't know how to win games as a coach. The fan base doesn't like him. Other NFL fan bases don't like him. He's not a good coach. He's not a good head coach. As a coordinator, sure, I'll have him as a coordinator, but don't let him run a team. He can't win. He doesn't know how to run plays. As for the Chargers, they lost, I believe, 36-34 against the Dolphins in Inglewood, LA, SoFi Stadium. I love the Chargers. I've been rooting for them from a distance for the past 2-3 years, ever since Justin Herbert was a rookie. I love that kid. I think he's a great quarterback. He's just in a very tough division because you have Patrick Mahomes leading the way. Do I think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs this year? Yes. They will be a wild card. I think the Chiefs are going to get the first round bye. I believe they're going to win 12 games this year. I believe they're going to go, yeah, I believe they're going to win 12 games, maybe 13. And the Chargers are going to win 11. I really think that. I think the Chargers are a great team. Justin Herbert knows how to lead a team. It's just They got unlucky. I think they need a slightly better defense. I think if they had a better defense, you put someone like Charvarius Ward on that team, C.J. Gardner Johnson, Sauce Gardner. Um, you need a good, you need a solid linebacker and maybe one more good defensive back, and I think you got yourself a playoff contender every year. But obviously, that's not the case. And the Chiefs are going to continue to win that division until Patrick Mahomes retires. And as for the NFC, I think it's going to be between the Eagles and the 49ers. It could the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be up there too. As a 49ers fan, I honestly think the Cowboys are going to be up there fighting for that top seed. They could surprise us all and win the NFC East and win the whole conference and get that first round bye. But I think it is ultimately going to be between the Eagles and the 49ers. Now that the 49ers have Nick Bosa, George Kittle is starting to get healthy, Ayuk balled out, Debo's great, Brock Purdy isn't missing a beat. You still have Fred Warner, Charvarius Ward, you have Christian McCaffrey, fully healthy. Trent Williams is still on your offensive line. Who else is there? You still have Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and Diamador Lenore. You know, it's you got talent. You got talent. They're young. You got them. Drake Jackson also balled out too. He had 3 sacks. He was the best player on defense. Who who would have thought Drake Jackson was gonna be the star of the game on defense, both sides. Don't forget about Javon Hargrave as well. Deshaun Gibson, Cleveland Farrell is still there. Javon Kinlaw. I mean, Eric Armstead. You literally, with that defensive line, you can take out the defensive line's first team, put in the second team, and you can still win games. Their second string defensive line can still do work. They can still wreak havoc. Ray McLeod, Jake Moody, Mitch Wishnowsky. Um, there's just an all-around good team. You know, Jake Moody in the preseason, I honestly didn't think they were gonna keep him. You know, they traded for Zane Gonzalez once Robbie Gold left, and I was like, okay, you know, Zane Gonzalez is a great kicker. You know, Robbie Gold's replacement. Is he as good as Robbie Gold? I don't know. He doesn't have, you know, the same amount of experience, but I know he can get it done. Then he got hurt. Jake Moody gets hurt, and they end up going with Jake Moody. But, you know, proved everyone wrong. The preseason was a fluke. He went 3 for 3 with his longest being 41 yards. It was going to be 46, but they got a penalty. And I still believe he made that 46-yarder. So, you know, 49ers fans, I think we're in good hands. You know, we still need to see maybe a couple more weeks. Jake Moody has still got that leg, but you know, I think we're good. And with that, I think that is going to be it for the inaugural episode of Beyond the Sideline. As of right now, we're about to hit the 45-minute mark. I think, you know, we talked about a lot of good things. If it came off a little basic, like I said, it's a fan's point of view. I can, you know, I'm not Adrian Wojnarowski or Adam Schefter. I'm not Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Peyton, the Manning brothers. But I will give you all the knowledge I know as a fan who's been watching. I've watched every 49ers game since the 2019 season, 2018 season. I've been a fan of the 49ers all my life, but I barely started really investing my time in football in 2018. I watched the Super Bowls and the playoffs, but for the 49ers, I've been watching every game since 2018. Haven't missed one since. And just in case if anyone else is wondering, like other teams I support, for baseball, I am an Angels fan. For basketball, I am a Lakers fan. And for hockey, as of right now, I claim the Anaheim Ducks, but I don't know. I could claim the Kings, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't really watch hockey. So I don't really know who I support. Oh, and that reminds me, college. We will be covering college basketball as well and a little bit of college football. I'm not too invested in college football, but if there's a big game on or when the bowl games start to happen, I'll be sure to cover those. And when college basketball comes around, I will be covering a lot of that. I'm a Kansas Jayhawks fan, so you might hear a lot more Jayhawks news, but you know, we got the conferences shifting soon. Next year, the Big 12 is going to be the Big 16. You got the Pac-12 being diminished to the Pac-4. SEC's getting bigger. The Big Ten's getting bigger. Stanford and Berkeley want to move to the ACC. Pac-12, who knows? Maybe the Mountain West is going to be the new Pac-12. We'll see. There's still a lot to unpack there. As for today, that's going to be all. And as for episodes being released, they're going to be a bit sporadic. There's not going to be a set release date for new episodes. I'll release them as I see fit. If there's really not much to talk about next week, then I won't upload a new episode. I won't publish one. But if in week 3 of the NFL there's a lot of great stories, then I will upload a new episode then. As I think there's just, you can get burnt out with how much information you get. But as I mentioned before, if you would like to be updated on when a new episode comes out, you can follow my Twitter or follow me on Twitch, where I go live on there. I play a lot of NBA 2K, Dead by Daylight. And if you follow and you pop in, just say, hey, I've watched your podcast. Is there a new episode on the way? And you can feel free to stick around. Through my Twitch and Twitter, you could also find a link to my Discord server where I will post when new episodes go live as well, or when one is close to being published. As of right now, this podcast will only be uploaded to Spotify and YouTube, unfortunately. We may expand further, maybe into Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts. But I'm still starting out. I'm still new. I want to keep it sort of centralized. I think Spotify and YouTube are a great place to start. If you like the podcast, make sure to like it and share it with all your friends. And yeah, like I said, if you guys like this, just let me know through Twitter, or you can stop by when I'm live on Twitch. or pop into my Discord and, send me a DM or just say in the general chat, like, hey, I watch a podcast, yada, 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 and voice your feedback. And like I said before, if this does well and I find other people interested, I will be sure to get some guests on. I have some people in mind. If they're interested, I would love to have them on. As of and when we do guests on the podcast for the YouTube version of it, I will most likely have a face cam on. But when it's just me, it's just going to be only audio. But like I said, if there's a guest, maybe we'll do a face cam. Just so you get to see me and the guest interacting. You get to see our expressions, get our opinions, and things like that. Before I leave, I think it's best to give a update on Thursday Night Football. Eagles are still up 27-14 with 12 minutes and 51 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So we'll see how that game plays out. And by the time you hear this episode, the game will be over. And if I upload this when I want to, this should be uploaded on Friday, September 15th of 2023. And yeah, I believe that is all I have to say. Been going now for 52 minutes. This is right around where I kind of wanted to be for this type of podcast, around the 40-minute to 1 hour mark. Maybe when we have guests, they'll be a little longer, but expect this to be the average, around 45 minutes or so. Something a little short, kind of recap the week when it comes to sports, talk about the biggest news, my thoughts. And yeah. Thank you to everyone for listening to the inaugural episode of Beyond the Sideline, and I hope to see you next episode.